Before we begin to bombard each other with a lot of questions and arguments, I wonder if you read in the newspaper. I don't generally read newspapers, I look at the headlines, that the world every year is spending $400 billion on armaments. That is $400,000 million. I don't know what that sum means, but that is what is being spent on trying to kill each other. I wonder, after reading such a statement, what will make human beings change? Yesterday, that gentleman over to my left put a question. He said, I've listened to you for so many years, listened to your talks, listened to your tapes and so on, and I am exactly where I started when I began. I think it would be important if we could go into that question rather seriously. Perhaps most of us are in that position. Perhaps. What will make a human being change very deeply? This has been a great problem for those people who are concerned with the transformation of man. What makes us change? If you put that question to yourself seriously and ask with all depth of your being, what will make you change? Will an external event bring about a crisis in your life and that forces you to do some radical thinking change? A death in the family, an incident or an event or a happening that is devastating, psychologically as well as physically. Will that bring about deep change? Or must you go through great pain, great sorrow, great agony brought about by external events and forces a human being to alter his course, his drive, his direction, his selfishness, his limited, brutal thinking? We've had several wars. Most of us perhaps have lived through 2 wars, devastating wars. Millions have been killed. Think of the misery, the confusion, the enormous sorrow of those people who have had great losses, not only physical losses, but their sons destroyed, And apparently, superficial events, however great they are, doesn't seem to bring about a freedom. Say, this cannot happen again. You understand? So, I'm asking, you as well have asked, this has been a question which we have considered many, many times. Will external events change man? That's one problem. That is, superficial events. And apparently, that has not changed man. Change in the sense we mean a real, deep transformation of the selfish drive identified with groups, nations, with beliefs, dogmas, religion, all the rest of it. And apparently, please follow this, apparently some superficial event, like the death of one's husband, wife, children, does bring, through great pain and sorrow, a certain change in oneself. I do not know if you have not noticed it. Does that mean we must depend on external events, death, war, somebody leaving you, and so on, so on, so on? External devastating events, will that change you? Which means that you must depend on outward things which will then put you through great agony and suffering, and out of that you come, bringing about perhaps a deep mutation. Right? It seems to me, seems to us, that that's the most appalling thing to even to say it. That we must go through suffering to bring a change. That's inconceivable. But yet that's what happens, apparently. It's like a man who is driving a car rather carelessly, kills others and perhaps survives, and after that he says, I'm going to be awfully careful how I drive. He's intelligent after the event. Is it possible to be intelligent before the event? You understand my question? Intelligent meaning not become more clever in this instinctual survival of selfishness, of the drive of desire, and so on, so on. But that intelligence that is born out of the perception that superficial events does not fundamentally change man, but that change must come totally inwardly, without any pressure, without any event, to perceive that is part of intelligence. Right? That I do not depend to perceive the truth, that if I depend on outward pressure, outward events, which puts me through great deal of sorrow and anxiety, I will either become cynical, bitter, or escape into some form of entertainment. So in that, there is no deep change. To see that is part of intelligence. The materialists, the communists, the totalitarian people say, change the outward events, then man changes. But that's been tried through millennia. Right? And apparently man has not changed. And also there is this this statement made by several gurus and teachers in the East and perhaps in the West, that surrender yourself. Then all your problems are solved. You again surrender to something outside, or surrender to something which you have created. You follow all this? I wonder if you understand. Please, are we understanding each other? This is very important. After that question of that gentleman yesterday, he said, I've listened to you for so many years, and I have not changed. I am where I started out. You know, to hear such a statement, you cry inwardly. You understand? I wonder how many of you cried inwardly. And what will change him or you or another? Is it, as we said, an external event, devastating, which brings about sorrow, and then that sorrow, if it is deep, it shatters everything that you have had. And then perhaps say, I can't live this way anymore. See, again, depending on an external event. And external event can be vast. Wars, earthquakes, and so on, external events. Realizing that these religious, can I use the word exploiters? These religious exploiters, with your consent, I'm using that word, says, give yourself over, surrender. You understand what the implications of it? Surrender naturally to the Guru, to the man who says surrender. But inwardly, do you eliminate this drive, this self-centeredness, and so on, so on? You understand? Again, the same phenomenon, which is outward pressure, now you are exerting inward pressure to give it to somebody else. Have you understood this? Huh? Can we go on from there? Now, Do you listen to all this? That outward pressure is not going to change, right? Inward, giving yourself over to a presence or a reality, to God, to this or to that, is still the desire which drives you to forget yourself. But the self is still there, only covered up. So, do you listen to these statements? Right? Or it doesn't mean anything at all. So perhaps the root of the matter lies there. Intellectually, verbally, you see reasonably, logically, what the statements we have made just now, very clear. Unless you want to change the words, you can change it. But the essence of it is that the outward pressure through sorrow and the inward pressure to escape from yourself, right? Which again is another form of. Do you listen to this? So that you see the truth of it, that under, whether it be pressure from outside or from inside, there is no change. To see that, to hear that, and see that fact, that is intelligence. You understand? So are you, forgive me for asking this question, are you who have listened to this morning, clearly exposed, logically, sanely, do you see the actuality of it, the truth of it, and therefore there is intelligence. Therefore, that intelligence is the denial of the outer or the inner, and therefore moving from where you are. Do you understand? Now, have you listened this morning, taken in, seriously gone into it, as we did just now, and see that pressure, outward or inward, in different ways, in different forms, will not bring about the radical mutation? To hear that and see it is intelligence. Do you see it? Do you have that intelligence? Therefore, that intelligence acts before the event. So that man has not to go through sorrow. If you discover that it is something you follow, it's a divine gift. Sorry to use the word divine. It's a great, enormous gift. Because before the event, catastrophic, devastating event, that brings sorrow, or any pressure, outward or inward, will not change man. When he realizes that, sees the truth of that, that intelligence is operating. Wherever it is, whether in your daily life, whether it is in an office, you follow, all the time that's operating. Right.